We are in movie mode for the second time this week. I'm Ryan Snelling.
I am Austin Burke, but I'm also fired up because I am on cloud nine after an action extravaganza known as Kill, Ryan.
Yes, it's a good thing you're on cloud nine because this is the latest we have ever recorded a podcast. Our evening started, technically, for me, at like 5:15 p.m. So 5:15 is when I knew that I had to leave my house. I actually still left at that time thinking that I needed to stop and get an energy drink. I decided against that. But I got in my car. I had about an hour drive, guys. This movie started at 6:45. So I had an hour and a half, extra 30 minutes of cushion. Because I didn't stop for an energy drink, I just breezed my way through. Usually I'm booking it, going 80 miles an hour. I stayed at a nice 72, just casually went to where we were seeing the movie. I stopped at the gas station, just peed. It was just a way to kill time, honestly. Like, hey, why don't I just stop here and pee? Anyway. So it was nice. But for an evening that started at 5:15 for a movie that was a little bit less than 2 hours, we found ourselves beginning this podcast at 12:40 a.m. the next day. And where did the time go?
That's what I was going to say, man. It's either the latest we've recorded or it's the earliest we've recorded, however you want to look at it. Yeah, I was, man, what a crazy day it's been. We've done, my wife and I and the baby, all kinds of things today. And then I was cutting it very close. And I was getting closer to when I needed to leave, realized I wasn't going to be able to leave on time. So I may or may not have driven a little fast on the way to that movie theater. But I got there at the exact time that the movie was supposed to start. You were waiting for me out front, and we walked into that theater, and until right before the movie started, we were the only two people in the theater. So I had the luxury of like, okay, we got commercials, I can go get a bite to eat, and two more people eventually came in, but that's probably just the most free, like nobody's in here. I even sat, I usually sit right next to you, Ryan. I sat a seat over for once, and it wasn't even my assigned seat. I felt dirty. But yeah, that was an interesting experience for sure.
Well, in my dreamland, dream world, this podcast, because we're starting to incorporate foreign cinema, Indian movies, if movie mode succeeds, like I think it will, there will be 4 extra people that come into the theater next time.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
We're going to get those 2 others. We're going to get those 2 others the next big Indian release that comes out. All right. First thing I want to say is we might have some new listeners here. It happened with the Kalki episode. So if you are new to movie mode, welcome so much. We have so far had a blast talking about Indian movies, whether it be on our personal channels, on this podcast. Our conversation, we want it to involve people who have seen this film and people who have not seen this film and really need to take our recommendation. Spoiler alert, excuse me, it's late. Spoiler alert, really need to take our recommendation and go see this movie because it's fantastic and absolutely worth seeing in theaters. So anyway, our conversation is going to stay non-spoiler, and then we will make it very evident when we are spoiling. That way, if you haven't seen the movie, you don't have to listen to that. So that's what we're going to do here in a second. It was our nation's Independence Day a couple of days ago. You might have checked out our Maxine podcast, guys, and we had a lot of fun talking about that movie. But we talked about fireworks a little bit. And I just want to know how your 4th of July was, and did the fireworks do you and your dogs dirty? How'd it go?
Well, I broke out the Captain America socks, so I knew it was going to be a good day. I haven't been able to wear those yet. It was awesome. We were able to go to my friend's house, and he lives in a beautiful neighborhood where they shoot fireworks off in numerous places around the neighborhood. And so after a delicious meal that was thoughtfully prepared by my friend Sam and myself, for the women who were able to sit and enjoy their evening while the men were just grilling like crazy.
That's right.
It was pretty awesome, dude. We make some some kick-ass burgers. But then we sat down and enjoyed some beautiful fireworks. You know, Riley, my daughter, this is her first time watching fireworks. She started out terrified. Then she enjoyed it. And then she's a little terrified again. If you go look at my wife's Instagram post, there's a shot of her on my shoulders, bawling her eyes out. It was hilarious. But all in all, it was a good evening. Got back. So admittedly, I've been given my older dog CBD oil for a couple of months now. And I gave him a little extra. And I gave my younger dog some CBD for the first time because I said, and I turned on a sound machine in the living room because I said, I don't want the dogs to freak out because I know they're going to freak out. At least one of them, because the other one can't hear. Tonight, right now, while we're recording, people are shooting off fireworks. Dude, it's over. Go home. It's over. Stop it. Here's the thing. People plan the whole year for fireworks on the 4th. And even the night before. That's fine. Okay? Because you're really excited. You got to get those things. If you have any left over, save them to next year, right? The next night is the night of recovery. The next night is, okay, great. I can go to sleep. My daughter's asleep. My dogs can calm down. They're zen in there on the couch right now. No, they're not. I tried to take my dogs out to pee earlier and they're shooting off fireworks. And I'm just like, dude, and I hate being like this because I used to hate people like this. But people have kids and dogs and lives. It's over. And the guy right next to our neighborhood, I mean, on the other side of the house is shooting off fireworks right now. You may be able to hear it while we're going. And I am sick of it, Ryan. How about you?
Last night, I didn't do anything fun at all. As a matter of fact, I stayed home to work on some content.
Nice.
And didn't realize that that'd be impossible with the fireworks. So
there you go.
It was a complete waste of a night. I mean, I just chilled. I had a good time. No, I mean, I'm pretty introverted. I am a homebody, so I was totally fine with it. A little frustrated. I couldn't make videos, but it's all good. I just hung out, and the fireworks annoyed me because everyone around me just did it excessively. Now, I didn't get upset. It's not like my blood was boiling, but it was a little annoying. But it was the 4th of July. I thought back to our conversation on the podcast and was actually kind of laughing because I was the guy that was like, why do people expect people to not set off fireworks on 4th of July? Come on. It reminded me of, do you remember the app Time Hop?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had at one point a time hop that went back like 9 years, like a pretty healthy amount. And on St. Patrick's Day, one time I looked, and enough time had passed to where I saw a St. Patrick's Day post from like 9 years ago and then the one from the year before, 8 or 9 years apart, right? And the younger version of myself was bitching about refusing to wear green because it's a stupid thing to do. Don't pitch me, whatever my take was. Don't wear green, whatever. And then fast forward all these years later, and I tweeted something not remembering I had that take from all those years ago with the exact opposite take. All you have to do is wear green. You can avoid getting pitched. Yeah. And then I remember saying that and just laughing at how much of an idiot I've been in my life. But I posted both pictures side by side and put hashtag growth because my take completely flip-flopped over the years. Anyway, on the way home from the movie, the way it works out, I guess we're like driving down a mountain. You can see pretty far out when you leave. I don't know why I'm dancing around where we live and where we went. Anyway, where we were to my house, you're kind of driving downward so you can see the sky much better. Fireworks are going off everywhere in the distance for miles.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
And I was just thinking to myself, yeah, we did this already. So the problem with the 4th of July this year is that it was a Thursday, which means the next night, it's Friday night. And the next night is Saturday night. We're going to have all weekend with this. All weekend with the fireworks.
I hate it. I hate it. I sound like a curmudgeon-y, just angry. I hate it. Stop it. Now, admittedly, the drive home was beautiful tonight. All right. And I know you were right there with me. It was gorgeous fireworks in the background. You got the rolling hills of Kentucky. Not really hills where we live, but just beauty, right? That's awesome. And it's so funny how I act. At one moment, I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And then I get home and I hear the fireworks. I'm like, stop it. I hate all of this. So it really is circumstantial. But, man, you're right. The Thursday, 4th of July, not working out great because we're going to get tomorrow night. We're going to get just a weekend full of fireworks and stupid people. And I don't know if you noticed this either. I was driving and there were some people swerving in front of me, some people going about 90 passing me. I don't know if it's just people have places to go on the 4th of July weekend, but there were some crazy drivers on the way home tonight.
I don't think I caught on to that. I think my main takeaway was that I thought the fireworks were beautiful on the way home because I couldn't hear them specifically. I could just see them. So that certainly helped. But I guess I'm lucky. They're not going off now. They were going off when I got home before we stopped to edit video and stuff. So anyway, at first I was a little concerned, but nothing's happening that I can tell now. So anyway, I hope you guys had a happy 4th of July. Hopefully you have all your limbs, all your phalanges, and enjoyed time being in America. To celebrate America, let's talk about an Indian movie. Actually, first, I want to talk about an American movie. These Gladiator II set photos. I don't know how to have a conversation about photos. Usually, pictures come out. I'm like, oh, I like them. I don't like them. Whatever. So it's kind of funny that we've talked about Superman photos and now Gladiator 2 photos on here. But the second I saw these things, I knew I had to talk about them on the podcast. And it sounds like you feel the same way.
I love the first Gladiator. I think it's an amazing movie. I did not know what to expect with this sequel. I still really don't know what to expect with the sequel. All I have is the cast, but these photos. And these photos are some of the most epic, gorgeous, just badass looking photos, like first look photos that I've ever seen for a movie. And maybe it's my love and adoration for Gladiator. Maybe it's my hope that this will be a good Ridley Scott movie. Because we talked about this before. He's up, he's down, he's up, and he's been down a little bit more than up lately, and that's kind of disappointing. But just based around these images and seeing this cast and my God, Denzel Washington in a supporting role, which he hasn't been in a supporting role like this in so long. You know he's going to crush it. This is my most anticipated movie of the year. Number one for the rest of the year right now.
Yeah, I feel that. Honestly, Ridley Scott is a legendary director, super important to American cinema. I think he's a bit of a compiler. My need to see Ridley Scott film, I just don't feel a sense of urgency whatsoever to see his films. I kind of just pick and choose. I respect him a lot. I love his classic movies that made him the rock star director that he is, and I'm not going to take anything away from him. But his batting average isn't great, and However, this, as you said, might be my most anticipated movie of the year because of some pictures that were posted online. These might be my favorite first look images ever.
Yeah.
And the feeling I get when I look at them is not only are we going to get a worthy sequel to Gladiator, I think we might have like another Dune Part 2 situation.
Ooh.
I have this feeling that we're going to have like a legendary legacy sequel, and that we might be witnessing another classic in real time.
Wow.
And I know that that's very strong from just some pictures, as I said. But every time, I guess I saw like 3 originally. It
Mhm.
was Pedro and Paul Mescal going at it with swords, the
Oh,
Denzel photo, and then it's like Pedro with like smoke behind him. And then I thought that was it, right? And then a few hours would go by. I don't remember what I was doing. I might have been at work, but a few hours went by. I would check Twitter, and then I'd see another one. I'd see the one
mm.
where Paul Mescal's like flexing and he's like grabbing at
Oh,
something, and
beast.
and then I'd see the one with him in the arena like picking up the dirt. So it was like a gift that kept on giving throughout the day, and it just jolted all of these feelings back. So it was like a drug I was taking all day. I was like, oh my god, the Gladiator 2. I can't talk to anybody about this because nobody else gives a shit. But there's just something about the energy from those photos. I don't know. Am I crazy? Like, am I speaking too strongly about this?
Well, you absolutely are, but I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, just looking at this from a further viewpoint, I'm like, it's pictures. Why am I getting so excited over pictures? But this is like
Yeah.
this is a Ridley Scott return to form type situation, which is something. And look, he's had some good movies, like not recently, but The Martian was great. The Last Duel, I thought, was a really, really strong movie.
I
But
like it.
this is that epic type storytelling that he thrives in this world, right? He thrives in sci-fi, he thrives in this world specifically, and his
Yeah.
best, at least from my viewpoint, has been Gladiator. That is his best. That's the best thing he's ever done. And this, obviously being a sequel, is the closest he's been to that since. And I feel like he's
Right.
going to treat this, since it is a sequel to a beloved classic, like his baby. And I think there's going to be a lot
Yeah.
of respect given to the from every angle, not just Ridley Scott's, to this material. And I don't think you get, now look, I know you had Joaquin recently for Napoleon. I don't think you get a Denzel in a supporting role like this, or this
Yeah.
cast from top to bottom signing on to this movie if they didn't have confidence. Because you're not just going to sign on to a Gladiator 2 for the sake of doing a Gladiator 2. This is precious to a lot of people, this first movie. And so Denzel signing on,
Yeah.
that kind of tells me something. That tells me something. And that first look at him was awesome. But yeah, when the trailer drops, I am going to be, you may have to just call me and talk me down, Ryan, because I'm not going to know what to do with myself. I'm going to be
Yeah.
chaotic and scattered that day.
It, I don't know how much weight this statement holds after, the fact that Joseph Quinn and Pedro Pascal are both going to be a Fantastic Four. But
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned the cast, even Paul Mescal, who I think he's been very selective. He
Sure.
didn't run off and join Marvel or anything like that. He's acted like he's put a lot of care into his filmography and career so far. And so I think that the fact that this is the big one for him says a
Mm-hmm.
lot too. But Gladiator is not, well, it literally wasn't a franchise, I guess, until like a few months ago.
Yeah.
But it's not an obvious movie to create a sequel around. When Ridley Scott puts out Alien, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can come up with 6 different ways to do Alien, and they have. And they're
Sadly.
adding a TV show as
Yeah.
well. So not only can they do Alien 6 different ways, but they can do it on television as well. But personally, I haven't thought about a Gladiator sequel since that movie came out. It's just not obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hopefully a sign that he just had a really damn good idea. And it's a
Yeah.
really great sign that Ridley's coming back. The studio didn't come up with it on their own. That's what's on my mind right now. And I think that's what has me most excited, is that it just seemed like that script seemed like a great reason to get all those people together and make this movie. And he cranked it out. I mean, I feel like we just heard about this movie 9 months ago. I'm sure it's one of those things where it was reported way after it was already in production, but he cranked it out nonetheless, and I'm so excited for it.
There's something about a not very obvious sequel that I think is almost more enticing than an obvious sequel, right? That's partially what makes me so like, we knew we were getting a Joker 2 because it made so much money. We didn't know they were going to make it a musical. And so that went in a direction that was not obvious at all. And it's weird, but it's enticing, right? But for Gladiator, you're right. It's not a movie that I ever thought required a sequel, but the fact that they're doing one, I think you phrased it beautifully. There's something about this idea that I think Ridley Scott felt had to be made, even though not many people saw it coming. And so that in itself gets me even more excited than something like a Dark Knight or, the very obvious part 2. This is not that. And so, again, we may be overblowing this, absolutely, but if we get Gladiator 2 in the same year as Dune 2, and they're both on that level of just epic, maybe masterful, maybe, top-tier storytelling, I'm not going to be one that says, okay, well, no more sequels. Sequels are bad, because that seems to be the mindset right now. We're just milking these franchises, blah, 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 because that's two masterful, amazing, worthy sequels this year on top of some other sequels that have been great recently as well. And so that could be a really cool pairing to get in 2024, Dune 2 and Gladiator 2.
The other thing it has going for it is this is just the kind of movie I want to see right now.
Yeah.
I want another sword and sandal epic. I want to see dudes being badass. I want to see realism. I want to see something historical. This is just a Gladiator movie, whether it's literally Gladiator or not, is the kind of thing I want to see.
For sure.
What's funny, I was just thinking about how it's so silly that we're talking about all of this from these photos, but put any of these pictures in Photoshop, replace any of the actors with a Targaryen from House of the Dragon. I would look at it and be like, oh, there's some House of the Dragon pics. It would be meaningless to me.
Yeah.
If any Targaryens were in those exact same pictures, I'd be like, cool, yeah. But isn't that so silly?
No, you're right though. I mean, it's all about context is key in a situation like this. And just knowing what this movie represents to a lot of people and what it could represent when it comes out.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny too, because we had a run like in the late 2000s, early 2010s, where they did just a bunch of swords and sandals movies. They did like Gods of Egypt. Like, what on God's green earth was that? And some
Ben-Hur was remade.
Yes,
Ben-Hur.
Right? I forgot about that. Oh my God, you're right. Ben-Hur was remade. Why aren't we talking about that more? Because they were terrible. Because they were just bad. And so I think Hollywood got kind of scared for a while. We've been through this in almost every genre. Like, they stopped making Westerns for a while. They stopped making this for a while. And so I think, if Gladiator 2 is great, maybe we start seeing more. And if it's successful, maybe we start seeing more of these types of movies. I think that would be great for the industry.
I love Troy, by the way.
I haven't seen it in a while. I like it a lot. My mom used to watch it all the time because Brad Pitt, and she's got a thing for Brad Pitt. Yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed it when I was younger.
Love it. Love it. I saw it when it was in theaters. Wasn't allowed to see R-rated movies, so I got grounded for seeing it. So it's kind of been, you probably have an example of this, but it's like one of those things that I still bring up to this day and just kind of make fun of my mom for, because I'm just like, isn't it hilarious that you grounded me for seeing Troy of all things? And anyway, so that's something I just bring up. I always reference that Troy. Anyway, but God, I love that movie. It's not perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect. I just love it to pieces.
Do you want to know my funny movie story of a movie I wasn't allowed to see?
Absolutely.
My parents went with me and took me to see Norbit with Eddie Murphy.
Okay.
And my parents are very just religious people. And I think they expected like a daddy daycare kind of thing. I don't think they watched the trailer. They're actually a good example of people that I talk smack about sometimes, because they're just like, oh, this poster's great. Let's go see it and not look at the rating. They took me and my younger brother, 5 years younger, to see Norbit when I was like 13. And the horror on my parents' face. Did
they pick you up and take you out before the movie ended?
Oh, yeah, we left. It's the
Oh
whenever
yeah,
somebody asks, Austin, is there a movie you've ever walked out of? No, not me on my own, but Norbit is the movie that we stopped watching in the middle and left. And my mom and dad were walking out of that theater with my brother and I just in their arms, like, we're so sorry. We're so sorry we put you through
yeah,
that. And to this day, I joke with my mom. I'm like, you guys remember when you traumatized me and took me to see Norbit? Which, of course, it didn't traumatize me, but it just makes them feel so bad that they
yeah.
took me to see Norm. Even Cats, right? One of the worst experiences of my life. I stayed in that cinema all the way through because I just feel like if I'm walking out of the theater, I can't give a proper review, and then there's something about just dropping $15 and not finishing the movie. So yeah, I don't walk out of movies now,
No.
but I did then when I was younger.
To be fair, I haven't seen Norbit, so I don't know exactly what that experience is like, but I can
pretty
imagine.
It's raunchy.
The last movie I walked out of was Black Adam.
Oh,
I was furious. I was just so over it. And I got up, walked out, and then my video, it wasn't a review. It was, I walked out of Black Adam, and that was the video I made. And I just bitched about how it was absolute nonsense.
I went to
anyway.
the Black Adam world premiere in New York, and so I think I was a little more hyped. I mean, I didn't really like the movie, but I passed by the red carpet with Dwayne, and so I was, people say all the time, red carpets don't sway me, and doing all these cool promo things don't sway. They're lying to you. I was just in a really great mood when I watched that movie. It's not good, don't get me wrong, but I was kind of like, yeah, I went to the world premiere. That was cool. This movie's exists.
that movie changed how I look at Dwayne Johnson forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why? Because he was supposed to be playing one of the most ruthless DC villains of all time and somehow managed to turn him into a wussy hero?
No, because if we go see a movie, you and I, and it's not good or it's terrible, we're under the assumption that it's easy to dispose of or it's easy to make excuses for a movie being bad because we're always under the assumption this probably only took a year or two to make, tops. So maybe they rushed the script. Maybe they did this. There could be a million things. But when we heard about a movie for 15 years that Dwayne Johnson was trying to shepherd, and I would love to know if anyone has ever planned a movie longer than Black Adam. Maybe Megalopolis. But I would love to know if there was a way to measure what's the longest a movie has been worked on or in production. Because I would love to know. Because Black Adam was his baby, his child, for literally at least a decade. And that was it.
Dude.
And it's lost. It's lost to history. It will not be remembered.
No.
It will be forgotten in 5 years. Once James Gunn gets cooking, it will be forgotten. Dwayne Johnson's stock, it was already kind of waning on me, honestly. I've been questioning why we hold him up for about probably almost about 10 years, actually. I've been acting like Dwayne Johnson's not hot. But anyway, why are we talking about this?
Well, I'll say this. I actually think it could lead to something really special. And I say that because Dwayne took that role in his new A24 movie that I genuinely believe he looks unrecognizable in this role. I think he's going to take this very seriously. And I think he learned, maybe not fully, but from some of the mistakes that he made on these projects and with DC and trying to be in full control all the time. And I think he's going to scale back, and I think he's going to hone in on this performance in this movie. And I have a feeling he's going to be really good in it. And so hopefully the most disastrous part of his career can finally lead us to taking him seriously as an actor, and we may get to see him do something that isn't just Dwayne Johnson in a Black Adam outfit or Dwayne Johnson in a movie with a giant ape. It's always just Dwayne Johnson. I want to see him fall into a role. I thought that would be Black Adam. It wasn't. And so maybe this leads to better things. That's what I'm hoping. Maybe when the movie comes out, I'm wrong. We'll see.
I think it's a one and done, personally. I think it's entirely PR driven. I think it's somebody who's so aware of his career that he's just thinking to himself, oh, I got to do this one thing to see if I can do it, but also have live action Moana booked, which is a live action Disney remake. And we all know how well those do.
True.
It's like,
but at least if it's a one and done, then at least it's one. Because before we wouldn't have gotten that one.
I'm not saying
Moana
I won't.
again.
I'm not saying that I can't singularly appreciate that movie. I just think if we're having a general conversation about what it meant to his career, it might even just be a complete waste that it was him, and it could have just been anybody else. But anyway.
True. We'll see. I hope it works. I hope it works out for him.
Good for him if it does, but it's not like I'm one of these guys that's like dying to see Dwayne Johnson get back to like I literally just don't care about him. Like if he's in a good movie, and I see it, I'm glad I saw a good movie, but I'm not cheerleading Dwayne Johnson's career comeback either. So, whatever. Anyway,
I don't know. I don't know if I am. Like I don't know, man. Because I've not liked him in so many things, but there is part of me that wants to see him back on track, and not that he even ever was on a track acting wise, but he was at least super likable, relatable. But now he just does so much of the same stuff, and he's full blown superstar status. 20 years later, and so all of that relatability and all of that. Kind of what we used to know him as is kind of gone, and I'd like to see something humble him, but maybe he can't be humbled. Maybe Black Adam wasn't capable of that.
I think his best movie is still The Rundown, and that was his first movie, his first leading movie, outside of Mummy Returns. The first Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie, The Rundown. Yep. It's great to this day.
You didn't like Scorpion King?
I didn't see it. I haven't seen that.
It's bad.
Yeah. Anyway, enough Dwayne Johnson talk. Let's get to the headliner. Let's get to the movie that might end up on both of our top 10 lists.
Yeah.
If we did a top 10 list. Well, no, if this was eligible for a top 10 list of the first half of the year, it'd definitely be in it, without a doubt.
100%. Easily.
Yeah. So let's tell you about a little movie called Kill. This movie was on my radar. I posted my first trailer reaction to Kalki, and somebody commented I should check out this movie Kill, because it's being distributed by Lionsgate. And I did some research after that, and I didn't realize how rare it is for an American distributor to pick up an Indian movie and put it in theaters like this. I watched the trailer and did a reaction video for it. The only reason why I bring that up is because the title of that reaction video was Bollywood Does John Wick on a Train, or whatever I said. And that excited me, because up until this point, guys, I've seen RRR, I've seen Bahubali, I've seen Pathan. I hadn't seen Manjamel Boys yet at the time, but I was excited to see something that I recognized. A dude just mowing down hoes on a train, being a badass, it being punchy and crunchy, and it being about revenge. And yeah, I just saw John Wick on a train, right? And I don't remember exactly how you caught wind of it, so I want to hear about that as well. But just to tease a little bit of what we're going to, I thought it was going to be something conventional, like, hey, how does Indian do this type of movie? We didn't get that. And much like Kalki, we got something extremely special here. And just a movie that, even though it's 5 hours, 6 hours into the night since we've seen it, we're still riding high after seeing Kill. So, yeah, walk me through. I can't remember exactly how this movie popped on your radar.
Yeah, I remember it premiered, I believe, last year at Fantastic Fest. And so I remember Sean Chandler and Cody Leach and some of those guys, because they're trying to get me to go to Fantastic Fest with them this year. And I was texting Sean tonight, telling him how much I enjoyed the movie. And he's like, yeah, imagine watching that in a packed house full of people who had no clue it was coming. And I'm like, dang, man. Because you and I, we saw it in essentially an empty theater. And Sean said the theater he was in was bumping because nobody expected it. And, you know, I've seen glimpses of this trailer. I think I finally realized I haven't seen the trailer all the way through because, and I won't say why, but there are some things in the trailer that I finally watched when I was editing my review tonight that I watched in that trailer and said, wow, I'm so glad I didn't know that was coming, or I didn't see that image, or I didn't see that shot until I was watching the movie. And so for me, the reason why this was so special tonight is because I didn't know all that much about it other than some really solid hype from a film festival, and then getting to experience all of these things for the first time in real time, and how this movie manages to shock you all the way through. I mean, just consistently shock you with its brutality, but also its plot twists was super cool. And so, and, you know, we talked about, you and I both were just sitting there contorting our arms and twisting our bodies and like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I had my arm at one point right here, and I didn't realize it for like 20 minutes because it was just so in shock from the moment prior. It was genuinely a memorable theatrical experience, even though it was just you and I basically in that theater, that I will not forget for the rest of the year. And a lot of that has to do with just how freaking surprisingly badass this movie is.
Yeah. Guys, just a reminder, we're going to stay non-spoiler here for a while, and I will make sure that you all know when we break into spoilers. But to build off of what you just said and what I was speaking to is, you know, again, I just thought it would be about a guy who was seeking revenge on this, you know, final boss, right? This henchman, or, you know, this bad guy, whatever. And I thought it was going to be like a platform video game. We start at one point in the train, so point A to point B, and we fight nameless, faceless dudes along the way. That is not what we get with this movie. It's primarily on the train. You know, we do get a couple of opening scenes. Before that, we learn that our main character is a commando. We learn about the love of his life, and eventually their paths lead to this train ride. And it just so happens to be when a gang of bandits that are comprised of like families, a gang of bandits decide to just rob the train. And nothing special in particular. It's not like they need plutonium or uranium because they're terrorists. They kind of just walk up and down aisles and take watches on laptops. Yep. But it's just like, it's like this small crime, this petty crime that but they have no idea that they're on the train with a trained soldier, with two trained soldiers. But yeah, and all hell breaks loose. And it's not conventional because it's not about revenge for most of the time. I would say for the first hour, it's not about revenge at all. And then it suddenly becomes about revenge. But there's so much going on with the villains. It's an extremely dynamic movie. We're able to go in and out of the train for various reasons, and certain characters end up in other boxes or in other coaches, I guess is the word I should use. And so there's just a lot going on all of the time. It's not just about a guy fighting his way to another coach. So anyway, that's, I guess, the simplest way to put it without spoiling anything. And we'll break down again why it's unconventional and why we were so surprised and shocked. But yeah, it's just so funny to me that I went into it excited because I just thought it would be like a movie that I was familiar with. I mean, that's literally all that I thought. How does India do John Wick? And it would have been the same, right? Like it would have been the same thing. We knew from the trailer that we weren't going to get epic bombast like other Bollywood movies. So it's just so funny to me that all I needed it to be was a generic action movie. That's all I needed, and it just wasn't.
Well, I mean, when you try to replicate John Wick like other movies have done, you usually end up saying, well, that wasn't as good as John Wick. It tried to be John Wick, but it just didn't quite reach those levels. There are moments where I thought of John Wick, but the story didn't try to be John Wick. The only real comparison you can make with the story is that kind of quest for revenge that doesn't actually factor into it at all in the first half of the movie, because our two heroes, there are two of them, are much more reserved for a portion of the film because they don't have an actual clear goal in mind. It's basically, we have to save these people. We're not going to go too crazy here. We're just going to defend the people that need our help. But eventually that escalates. And when it escalates, this movie, I think, turns up a notch. And that energy, that pacing, that edge of your seat type action thriller, that kicks in. And it literally went from being one thing to something almost completely different, but flowed so beautifully all the same. And so I was just really impressed with the way that they managed to tell this very simple and, familiar story in a totally new and fresh way. But again, I chalk a lot of my enjoyment up to the willingness with the script to take risks and not play it safe at all. This movie does nothing. Like, it's the opposite of playing it safe because of the decisions that it decides to make along the way. And for that, huge respect. I applaud this film for the bold decision-making and then just the boldness in general of the action scenes and the bone-crunching, bloody gore. You said this in my video, I believe. You said it's pushing past that R rating at times. I mean, this is more brutal than most R-rated movies I've ever seen in a theater, and you feel these punches and the bones breaking and the ripping open of human flesh. I mean, it is some brutal scenes and moments, and that was awesome. And again, when you do a movie like this, you can do the same old thing, but you have to have it stand out in a way. This movie stood out in 5 or 6 ways. And I think the best moment, just to throw it over to you, is when that title card hit about 45 minutes into the movie. I'm going to keep talking about that. It is a highlight of the year for me because that's when you know exactly what you're watching. The title card hits, and then what you're in for on the other side. That was amazing.
Yeah, that moment was tough in a good way. Like it was sick. It was sick. So I looked it up after the title card slammed and saw that the movie runtime was like an hour 55, something like that. It's almost 2 hours. And then I looked at what time it was, how long we had been sitting in the theater, and that title card hit about an hour into that movie. It was, I think it was halfway. Maybe an hour into the movie, if my calculations were right. But either way, it might be the longest movie, unless obviously we're not counting movies that have no opening credits and then the title card's the end credit. But it's probably the longest a movie's ever gone without slamming the title card, and it was sick. It was sick, cool. And that's one of those small touches though, but just based on your reaction and based on how much I loved it, it just made all the difference in the world, and like setting the stage and the tone and kind of recontextualizing in real time the previous hour that we had spent with it. Like it was just such a great, impactful moment. And you're so right about that. Another just little detail that I noticed that I was thinking a lot about, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure I've seen it, but I also thought that it was very purposeful that the villain was actually better looking than the main hero.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like built into his character, that he's sort of like a pretty boy. But to my knowledge, I don't think that family comes from money. I think that's the entire point, is that that gang of goons, those bandits, are not made of money. In fact, like they make a big deal. So Amrit's love interest, her family is on the train, and when they start to chatter like, hey, do you know who her dad is? Do you know who else is on this train? Again, my mind went to, this is going to be like this huge like mafioso, like main big boss in India, right? He runs a company. he runs a transportation company. I mean, he's rich, and that's the entire point, but it's like he's not a badass. It's not like he has a gang of goons to fight the other gang of goons or anything like that, or he looks particularly threatening. I mean, he just kind of looks like a pudgy dad. So those kinds of touches I thought were really great. That you had families. You had one older gentleman, his family, and the people representing them on the train. And then you had another guy representing the goons, but they weren't the main good guy or bad guy. So that was it. That was really interesting. But yeah, the fact that the villain was, and forgive me, I don't have his name pulled up, but I thought he was fantastic. And I thought he was just like better looking than the main hero. And I don't know if off the top of my head I can think of any other movie that's kind of done it quite like that, because especially with John Wick, I mean, we just have like scarred up old, European or Asian dudes or something like like they're not Keanu Reeves level good looking. So,
well, not just that. I mean, I love what they did with that side. Like you said, they're all family. There's a purpose for them, at least in their minds, why they are there. But it goes beyond that, and it shows their responses to each individual member of their evil family being taken out by our hero. And normally we don't see that side of things, but in this movie, they will cut to these guys as they're reacting to their dead family members and mourning. And so, as evil as these guys are, and as much as you hate them, and you love to hate them throughout the entire movie, and I wanted every single one of them to die, there were times where I'm watching this going, oh man, that's actually kind of sad. And a testament to some of the performances, because you really feel the powerful emotion in these moments, especially on the good side of things. But on the bad side of things, even then, I'm like, man, that guy just lost a brother, probably. That guy just lost a dad. And you feel the powerful emotion conveying from them when they know they're probably going to die, because this guy's about to take him out because he's the coolest guy in the world. But they're still going for it because they're trying to get revenge on their now dead brother or father. And so what a cool side of the story to tell, and something that you never get in a movie like this. I mean, you get the cool mob bosses and the cool villains, but you never see that thing happen with them. And so a bold decision being made there that I think really helped the film and helped the runtime.
But even John Wick has like this legend about him, or like, oh, he's the Baba Yaga, right? That didn't really happen to our main character. I mean, as a matter of fact, at first, when the gang leader realizes there's a couple of commandos on the train, he kind of tells everybody like, here, just like put your guard down and let them lunge at you and then crack them in the face. Like, he's kind of already trying to figure out, there's not really a time when we don't, like, we always understand that our lead character can fight all of these people one-on-one. Yes. What makes it difficult is that it's really just him and a couple of other people versus a gang of, like, I think they said there's like 70 of them. Is it that was it that high? Yeah.
Tracks.
So it was really just about the numbers, and it was about the contained space. Because I mean, you got to think about how difficult it is to fight for either one of them when you might swing a knife and then hit your arm on one of the metal bars. You know, there was all of the corners. I thought it was so smart, by the way. The very first set piece, the coach car that they were in, it was I guess where people were sleeping, so curtains were lining the hall, and I thought that was so smart, because if you're filming something like it, I don't know how they did it personally, but if you're filming that, there doesn't have to be anything on the other side of those curtains, so you can just swing arms left and right. So I kind of expected that to happen more throughout the movie, but thankfully there were different environments throughout, not just curtain lined train cars. But anyway, so I think the main point is that, like, I could actually kind of see these henchmen kind of getting in this guy's way, even though he's very much the only, as far as we know, trained person on the train. So it's not like he's immortalized. It's not like they talk about him like he's some superhero or whatever. It's kind of like, hey, if we're smart about this, we can kind of take out this guy. We just got to stab him enough.
There was a line early in the film that cracked me up. Some guy goes, "Oh my God, he's in the army." It's like, that's supposed to imply that he's the greatest fighter of all time. Like, that's why he's taking all these good. He's in the army. I'm like, y'all's army must be crazy, because like my buddy's in the army. He's got a beer belly. Like, ain't no. That being said, the line actually kind of paid off, because as they learn more about him, he's a commando. It starts to kind of explain at least the skill set that he has. I'm with you. I love how they worked the camera. This isn't even something that I've really thought about yet, but this very contained, almost at times claustrophobic space, how they're working in these just cool, chaotic camera angles. And I would love to see a behind the scenes on this, and just kind of, what the set looked like, and how they went about the distinctions of the different cars that they went into, and like the curtain element, and then all the items that they would use, and as a weapon, but also as something to bounce somebody's head off of. It was a really cool thing that they were doing. But also, we mentioned this too in one of our videos that we recorded, like Snowpiercer, you're moving down the different levels of the train, and there's one direction you're going, and there's an end goal there. In this movie, we're going this way, we're going that way, jumping out of the train, moving over, going back to the front, going back to the back, and there are parts of the train that we don't even hit until we get to almost the end of the movie, because there's some people that can help us. And so it was really cool how they moved about this space, and how they, how our hero used it to his advantage, and how our villains were kind of using it to even. And something I didn't mention that I really wanted to, I should have in my review before I got it up, is there were so many evil characters, and sometimes they would hide in plain sight, and you would think that they were just somebody that needed to be saved. And you never know if it's someone in need, or if it's one of our villainous characters kind of faking that out. So that I've not seen anything like that before in a movie like this. That was really cool.
I actually think they could have done a little bit more of that.
Sure.
And it'd be even more impactful. But once you kind of realize what, you take a second, you're like, oh shit. Yeah, that just happened, and it's cool, and the just camera, like everything else.
The camera lingers on him for just a sec, not at first, but in that third act especially, the camera will linger on certain people, and sometimes it would be, sometimes it wouldn't be, but most of the time, it'll catch your eye for a reason, so you're like, is that person actually? So again, man, the attention to detail is just great, especially towards the end of this film.
Yeah. For those of you that are curious, I mean, it's not like this is like a getaway train. They do knock out the brakes, the emergency brakes, excuse me, but it stops at stops. And then there's a grappling hook where you can climb up on top of the train and get to another car. There are doors that are locked and unlocked at different times. So that's why we're able to move around the train. So there are times when people can get off and on, and you kind of resets the stage, if you will. And
it's not like Bullet Train.
Did you ever lose your place, though? Do you think that there were times when the geography wasn't quite clear.
Yeah, I think there were, I want to say 2 occasions where I thought we were in a place that we actually weren't. And there was one point in the film where his plan wasn't very clear as to why he was going to that part of the train, if that makes any sense. And so, yeah, I got a little lost on occasion, but if you look at not how many subplots, but how many characters we're dealing with and how many of these hostage situations that are being held, it's like there was a lot to juggle. So I don't want to blame the movie too much for that. But yeah, there were times where I was like, oh, I thought he was up front and not all the way in the back.
Yeah, there were a couple times I was confused. I don't know if it's because the camera moved to the other side. Because, I was thinking in terms of left to right, left to right being back to front. So whenever I would see a character over here instead of over here, I'd be like, wait a minute. I thought that they were. So sometimes I think the camera got flip-flopped and I kind of got lost a little bit. I don't think it happened frequently, but there were a couple times where I felt a little disjointed. But it wasn't really that big of a deal, honestly. And we could just blow right past that point. But I wanted to make sure that I brought it up.
Yes, you're right. You're right on that.
But talking about how like crunchy the violence was, there was one thing in particular that really made me. It was a slam into a toilet. That hurt me the most.
Yeah.
And we see a guy's skull get crushed by a fire extinguisher, and the slam in the toilet bothered me more than that. I don't know why, but it did. But
mine would be where they're jamming the hammer down into the guy's head. Just 1, 2, 3, just boom, 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 man. That one's got a little woozy watching that.
And what's good about that scene too is that's when we also get to see a few other people from the train kind of chip in to take out some of these guys. And so that was one of the times. That might have been the time where I was the most like on the edge of my seat, like losing my shit. So cool. Yeah, what a great scene. So good. I don't know why. Maybe you can help me figure this out. But when this movie started, especially, and you and I kind of talked about it in our videos, mainly you though, but we start off, we see our main character. I don't know if he comes back from a mission or if he's just coming back from training, but we see that he's been away for a while, and then he has to go into the city to meet up with his girl who's about to get engaged to another guy. He's trying to steal her. And then there's this romantic scene at a wedding or an engagement party, excuse me. And we see all this going on. And as we're watching this, I'm thinking to myself in that moment, like, there's already something about this that I can't quantify. And I wish I saw more movies that did this. And you touched on it a little bit in your video where you were talking about how it was a little manipulative with the music and how that scene where they meet and we meet those characters for the first time, the lovebirds, a little cheesy. And we both kind of laughed at that scene. Can we quantify why exactly stuff like this works? And if you've seen the movie, you'll really understand what we're talking about. But why does that stuff work when we're watching it in the context of an Indian movie? But if it happened in an American movie, we would probably roll our eyes until they fell down the stairs. Like, why is it so different? And why are we so accepting of it? Is there something that they have that we don't?
That's what it seems like. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just because I almost expect those cheesy moments in movies like these within Indian cinema, and I don't know why that is. I think my brain at this point is just kind of accustomed to that. But even upon first seeing it, I mean, because there's a little bit of that in a movie like RRR. You have some moments that are a little over the top, a little cheesy, but it never really takes away. Like, even in this film, the music playing behind their very cheesy, I mean, honest to God, I was questioning if we were in the right movie at the beginning. I knew we probably were, but
I
there
don't
was a
think I
point.
remember that song specifically. I don't think I picked up on something that would have bothered me as much as that seemed to bother you.
It did. It was very, it's just the most generic, like track A on Final Cut, generic romance music behind their scenes where they're flirting with each other. And I was like, I don't, and I can't say I don't like it, but there's something off about it. But for some reason, when the movie plays out like it does, and you're looking back on those moments afterwards, see, in the moment, I found it to be emotionally manipulative. And I don't like when a lot of American movies do that, when they play music to make you feel a certain way, as opposed to you feeling a certain way and being enhanced by the score in the background, i.e., a Hans Zimmer,
Right.
I think, does a phenomenal job of that, or like a Johan Johansson, rest in peace. But in this film, the contrast between those moments and what happens on the train is drastic. I mean, it's like two different movies. But looking back on it and how it got us as silly and even, you could say satirical as it felt at the time, it got us invested in their relationship. It got us invested in the way that he feels towards her. And later on, when we see some of those flashbacks with them that, going into this film, I would have thought, oh, that'll probably feel out of place if they throw in a random flashback in the middle of this moment, but it works. And I cared so much about their cheesy little relationship towards the end of this movie. And so I can't look at that as a huge negative because it did its job. And I don't know why it works in a movie like this and doesn't work in an American movie that tries to do the same thing. I think there's something about American films try to take themselves so seriously, whereas a movie like this, it almost knows what it's doing, and it knows that it's trying to capture that. And once it does, you're off and running. And I think it did a heck of a job looking back at that moment.
I think that you're right that we have certain movies that take themselves so seriously, but I think at the same time, the movies that don't take themselves seriously fail in the same way and fail even harder, to the point where we're just like, give me a break. This isn't, this couple has no chemistry, no romance whatsoever. Like, how invested are we in Letty and Dom Toretto? It's like, okay, it's just in the script that they love each other, and that's the extent of it, guys. Like, it's just, but I think it has something to do with, there's something about the filmmaking that overall is just more romantic. And when I say romantic, I just mean the filmmaking is more passionate. And I don't know even how to explain it even more than that. But I just think that it's infectious. And I've said that before. I said it when we talked about Kalki, because Kalki was swimming in and out of tones and genres as well. I don't know. It's just like, you just buy it. Just, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'd have to sit with it a little bit more.
I think if you ask Vin Diesel about that relationship, he would say it deserves an Oscar. So I think that's the difference, right? Is he and everybody, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people with that care that much about those types of movies, they think it's more serious than what it actually is.
Yeah.
And so with this, I think they understand that we can provide a moment like this, but tie it in so beautifully and that's one thing I've noticed too, right? These movies, because Kalki, like you said, swims in and out of different genres and tones. Some will watch it and say it's jarring. I disagree with that. It feels seamless to me. It feels seamless.
Yeah.
And this movie specifically, while it was at first like, it's very cheesy, everything has a purpose. And I think purposeful filmmaking is the term I would use, is is they have a reason why. They, even if it doesn't work, even if it falls flat, even if it's ridiculous, and a couple of the films that I've seen, they don't work, but at least they have a reason why they're doing these things, and I think that really paid off in this film, as silly as it was at the time.
I think another thing that these movies have going for them, and when I say these movies, I do mean because Austin and I are just now steeping ourselves in Indian cinema.
Yeah, we're being very broad and generic,
And I made this point in the parking lot. I was like, if we wanted to get on Letterboxd and rank every movie that we've ever seen in our entire lives, it would be impossible. We'd have thousands of movies to go through. We'd have to remember every movie we saw as a kid that, we don't have any documentation of. And, we'd have to rewatch a million things like, oh, I think I saw that on TV once, but I don't remember it. So I can log it technically because I've seen it, even though I don't remember seeing it. It's just, that's just like true for every person until you start a journey like we have and we explore another. Literally, I could rank every Indian movie I've seen right now because I've seen 7 of them. And I could rank every Indian movie I've seen for the rest of my life because from movie 1, I've been documenting it. So that might not be the most amazing idea that I've stumbled upon. But we also have to realize and remember that you and I, when we talk about Gladiator, we have all of the context of Ridley Scott. We have the context of the original movie. When they announce a Marvel movie, we have all the context of the production troubles. We have the context of the dozens of movies that precede it. We have the context of the superhero movies that predate the MCU, on and on and on. My point is, when a Fast X comes out, or when a Marvel project comes out, or when a Gladiator 2 comes out, you and I and other film fans have all of these opinions as to why that movie's been made. Like, this movie's been made because it's a cash grab. This movie's been made because it's course correcting the franchise. This movie's been made, on and on and on. When we see Indian movies, Austin, it's almost like these movies exist just solely to make that movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we don't have any context for any of this. So when we watch these movies, it's almost like the filmmakers, the actors, just cared about making this thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about doing anything else. So it doesn't come off disingenuous. There's no like disappointing the fan base because they chose to do this decision instead of that. Like, none of that exists when we sit down and watch this stuff, you and I. And we can't experience that. So when people are like, you're just trying to watch Indian cinema because this is that, blah, blah. It's like, I don't think we even understand how like great it is that we're diving into this world. Like, it's weird. It's weird to just be like, let's just see what this culture is doing. But anyway, my point is we can get excited for a movie that comes out, but we have a million reasons to also keep us not excited. Like for the Marvels. Oh, they might actually talk about Miss Marvel being a mutant. What, but this movie is the sequel to a million things on Disney Plus. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know all the reasons why or why not for these movies. And so nothing's there to spoil them for us. That's a very long-winded thing. I apologize, but I was just kind of realizing that in real time.
No, I do agree with you. It's almost like these films are steeped outside of the plane of reality that we live on because we're so entrenched with these Hollywood movies. I liken it to, in Rick and Morty, there's something called interdimensional cable. Rick and Morty, they hate watching television from our Earth because it's boring and they've seen it 1,000 times. So they watch interdimensional cable because it's television from other worlds and other universes, something that they have no context of, but they enjoy it because they have no context of it. Kind
Right.
of reminds me of myself with Indian cinema. Is this how a general audience member just watches every movie? Because you and I, we watch movies all the time. We're constantly on Twitter. We know the ins and outs of
You're so right.
of every movie. We understand the what the actors are going through. We know what they ate for breakfast that morning when they go to do one of their interviews. We know everything, right? I have friends, they'll go watch movies that I will just shred apart, and I'll think about why this could have been better, why this could have been better, and they'll come back to me and they'll be like, yeah, it is. That's fun. That's a good movie. That's fun.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. Because they don't know everything about it. We know everything about it, Ryan, and that's the problem. I think that's part of the problem. What we do is we're so entrenched, it keeps us, at arm's length from a lot of these films, and I don't think we can really enjoy it on that level. But with these movies, Indian cinema, whether it's Bollywood or wherever it's spawning from, South India, whatever,
and it's very specifically our perspective of Indian cinema. Like there are probably people losing their minds, like, you're nuts. Like, this is the third time Kill has been remade. This actor just needed a paycheck to pay back his taxes, and it's like they're I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. Not just disingenuous, but if something is just made for all the wrong reasons. We don't know that with these. Again, we watch Kill, and the only thing I can think of is like, yeah, they just really wanted to make this so it exists. Like, that's how special it is. And that's all that matters, is that this movie had to be made because it's special.
Well, and that's part of the beauty of it, right? I enjoy that. I like being at arm's length from some of these behind the scenes things and because it's, first of all, for me, it's different because I'm so entrenched into Hollywood and I know everything that's going on. But for, someone else approaching this movie that knows a lot more about it, maybe it doesn't have the same type of impact, but that's what makes something like this so special, is knowing absolutely nothing about it. That's why I like going to film festivals, Ryan, because sometimes at film festivals, you'll watch a movie that you know nothing about. You've never seen a trailer for it. And most of the time, the word of mouth is better because you don't learn the ins and outs of the production months and months and months down the road. And then finally, people already have an opinion formed. And so that's it. All of that, like you said, me as well, long-winded way to say it's cool how we're able to approach these in such a distinct and different way. And I for one, I want to continue on the path that we're on, but I have discovered so many gems that I've responded to in a way that just feels different. And I like this feeling, right? I like discovering a movie like Kill, even if we're the only two people in the theater.
I feel like I've just been born. I'm a phoenix rising from Arizona. No,
you've been reborn, Ryan.
Sorry about that tangent. I have one more point I want to make before we break for spoilers, and then we'll get out of here. But I just want to kind of reiterate how great the villains were. So usually when we see a movie like this, it feels like, part of the point is that our hero takes one step forward just to get knocked 2 steps back. I kind of changed how I was thinking of it. It's almost like the hero took one step forward and then one step back, and then we watched the same thing happen to our villain. Like, we'd spend as much time with them trying to figure all this out as we did our hero. Maybe even more so. We saw the villains trying to figure out how to interact with our hero. But again, I thought the main guy was super effective. And I kind of thought he was just as big of a presence on screen, even though, again, he was prettier, he was scrawnier. They actually make that a point to mention. I think even the hero calls him out. You think I have any issues taking out your scrawny ass or something like that? That main point. But I just have to commend the director and the writing. He actually wrote and directed the movie. Cool. The scene in particular that really struck me was there's a scene where the gang of bandits basically experiences a haunted house. in one of the coach cars because of something our hero does. And I just remember thinking, like, whoa, what movie are we in? Like, when have we ever done anything like this? And the fact that, like, you can just take a second to experience what the villains would be going through in that movie, too. It's just like, you can get some of that, like, at face value in an American movie, but the amount of time and attention that was spent on it, I thought was great. And the fact that they really hammer home, like, a lot of the gang members were like family members with each other and things like that. Like, it was just really effective the way that was done.
And the moral conflict between them as well. There's even a conversation between two of them. They're like, we got to stick to our values and stick to our beliefs and blah, blah, blah. And the other guy's like, hey, buddy, we're thieves on a train. We don't have any values. Look at what we're doing. And I'm like, that's interesting that there's just this big disagreement on the why of why they're doing this in the first place. One guy sees it how it actually is. He's doing it anyway. But the other guy sees something in what they are doing. That's fascinating to me. And again, you're not rooting for these guys. You don't want them to win. Actually, I prefer if they all died. But there's something about showing us their perspective that was really, really cool. And I think that is a standout part from this movie. Also, another channel for you, Ryan. Reborn Ryan. You've got Rewatch Ryan, Reboot Ryan, and Reborn Ryan.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. There was even a gang member that was just like, why don't we just get off? Like, why don't we just stop? Why don't we just stop doing what we're doing? Like, but it wasn't from a comedic place. It was like, why are we still fighting? Like, what's the point?
Well, if they would have gotten off that train, a lot of things that happened after that would have been a simple process. A lot of people's lives would have been saved. It would have worked out better for some of our heroes, but they do the stupid thing that stupid villains would do, and they stay on the train because they want to get their revenge. And that's very realistic too, which I enjoyed.
There were enough of them though that philosophically they kind of like turned on each other a little bit too, though. There were like moments. It's not like there was this like, that's another thing an American movie would have done. Like, we would only spend time with one of the villains long enough to see them turn and make like a hero switch. They never did that, but you could see they weren't unified in their vision either, though. And so I was actually kind of expecting a couple of them to be like, dude, we just got to get off here. And there is a moment where I think that actually does happen in the tree line. So I guess it kind of does happen, but anyway, it's just smart. Do you have any kind of final thoughts before we break into spoilers?
I mean, it's just a really entertaining movie. Like, all the bells and whistles, the great riveting background score whenever our hero's on screen, I could list 5 or 6 different ways that he murdered people that would be in my top 10 ways of murdering people in 2024. Like, so many cool things. But an entertainment factor, I think, is the most important factor with a movie like this. And it's just super freaking riveting. If you like brutality and violence. If you don't like that, you're not going to enjoy this movie. But if you like it, man, you are in for something special. It's a visual treat on the big screen, and it feels really cinematic. Very, very cinematic. Yeah. People are talking right now, and Deadpool and Wolverine, they've actually changed the color correction, so it does look a lot better. People were shocked by that, I know. But this, the visceral visual style, the look, the color grading, the way it's shot, man, this is such a cool and different looking action movie at points, and the aesthetic of it is one that I think is one you almost have to witness on the big screen. That, and because you're hearing the sound design, those sound effects that are just on an XD screen, I'm sure, on an IMAX screen, I'm sure, but even in the theater we were watching it in, it sounded incredible, man. And I love this movie, dude. I love it. It's so good.
It's a very special movie. We've got plenty of videos out there, guys, so you can check out Reboot Ryan. You can check out Austin Burke. to see our immediate reaction and review of said movie. One thing we did not get to cover in those videos are spoilers. So that's what I would like to break for now. So, you've been warned. The title card punches in, and it's because the love of his life is murdered in front of him on this train.
Oh.
And I didn't realize it in this moment. And this is one of the examples of like, we could never call what was going to happen from scene to scene because they do things so it's so unorthodox the way that this is structured and plotted. And the fact that we're halfway through the movie and we think that the entire point is to rescue her so that they can get married. And you realize it's just not at all what we're about to do. And then it becomes a mission to save her sister, who's still stuck at the opposite end of the train because of where she was placed earlier. And again, this is an example of what made this special. It's an example of like something that we probably wouldn't let fly, depending on, it's just, I don't even know how to explain it or put it into words. But it's almost just like the fact that it happened is why I got excited. I don't know how else to put it. Like, it happened at the exact point in time where I had no choice but to think it was special. But if it happened at any other time, I would have been like, let's walk out of here. I don't know how to explain it.
Not only did she get stabbed in the back, but then she got stabbed in the side. Then she got stabbed in the neck. Then she got thrown off the train. I mean, this was, when we say brutal, this is about as brutal as it gets. And this guy's just watching the love of his life. But not just him, man. Her whole family's on that train. When her mother is mourning, when her sister finds out, dude, beautiful thing about this movie, it spends a lot of time on the emotional impact of character deaths. A lot of time. There's another family. We're not even really talking. I mean, it's a big spoiler. There's another family who loses a son. And that showcase of emotions, that display of pain and grief and sadness, man, that impacted me. And I knew nothing about that family. There was one line early in the movie where I think he says he wants to join the military, something like that. That's all we get. That's all we get from him. And then he goes in, tries to save the day, gets stabbed in the chest. Brutal. Use that word 1,000 times today. And his family standing over mourning. Then they get in on the action a little later in the film. Dude, what a cool thing to throw into a movie like this. Just a little side story that plays so prominently and really impacted me, man. Those performances, all of them, were very, very good.
I agree. I was thinking about how I would love to see some of these actors transfer over. I do want to talk about the American remake here in a minute, but I think it's about time I start to learn some of these actors' names outside of Pravas. Because like everyone I saw in this movie, I was like, I would love to know what they were in before this, and I would love to watch more things with them after. So I have some more homework to do. But I thought they were all great. Again, another thing that was special was that I didn't realize how invested I was in their relationship. It's not like they were together a whole lot during the movie, but everything worked. And I think part of it was the manipulation that we kind of also could have, complained about, given, any other context or circumstance. But it just, I don't know, everything clicked. Everything was vibing. And again, I love that they were all just kind of dudes. They were like dudes. They were bad dudes, but they were bad dudes locked on a train with a trained soldier. It's like
with the baddest dude, who's also the goodest dude, but the baddest dude. And they didn't have any particular skills or anything. Again, they were just thieves. It's a bunch of thieves, thought they could get away with something, and and they're going around, they're pushing people, they're stabbing people on occasion, but I don't think they ever intended on, horribly murdering multiple people. And I don't think they intended on our main villain snapping, because that's what set this in motion, right? Also, and I can't believe I haven't mentioned this either, our hero made a very strategic decision not to kill at the beginning of this movie. He's just knocking people out. He's just stabbing people strategically. I don't want this to be a bloodbath until the title card hits and until the revenge factor sets in. And that was, if you want to make the John Wick comparison, that was his dog. That was the thing that set him off. But when it set him off, something flipped in his brain, and even his movement was quicker. Before, it was survive and advance. This time it was, I'm going to seek every person out, and I'm going to murder them, and then I'm going to hang them and make their family see them before I murder them too. And that was so cool. And so when that flip switched, I was even more in than I was before.
It was like he went Super Saiyan. Just all of a sudden.
Commando
he went
style.
Yeah. All of a sudden, he just rose above 10, and he was on another planet after that. I don't know how much else you want to talk about in terms of spoilers, but I do want to go straight to the end and ask you, is it obvious? Did he die at the end?
I don't know. I mean, that's obviously what they were hinting at, that he laid on that bench and died, Caesar Planet of the Apes style. Just kind of slumped over probably. But I like the fact that they left it a little ambiguous, because, he survived all this other stuff, probably could have survived that, but also he wanted to be with the love of his life. And so, I think in my brain, personally, I think he does die sitting on that bench, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it reminded me of Extraction when I thought Tyler Rake clearly died at the end of that movie, and then they announced Extraction 2, and it's like, okay,
he's alive. Yeah, sure.
So there are people that are thinking, of course he died, but I guess I'm just trained to not believe it until I outright hear from the filmmaker or from the actor, I'm never playing this role again, just so you know, he's dead. I think you're exactly right. Him sitting on the bench, the fact that he was back with her through his vision, and then the dialogue that was spoken, it was very clearly he's going to be with her again. And he succeeded in protecting her sister and family. But, they could announce Kill 2, the killist, and then everything I just said will be out the window. But this movie does not need a sequel, by the way.
No, I don't think it does. Also, I will ask you what shocked you more, because we haven't talked about his partner in crime. Was it her dying, or was it him dying? Did you think he was going to make it, or did you think she was going to make it more so as we were going? Because I honestly thought he would survive the closer we got to the end.
You're asking between the two if I anticipated...
As we went, and then I'll say when the movie started, did you think they were both going to die? And then as we went, once she died, were you like, oh, okay, so then his friend is safe? Because they offed them both, dude. That's what shocked me. The guy didn't have anybody left by the time the movie was over.
If I remember correctly, the partner, his friend, kind of took a couple of critical hits early on.
He did.
I think, if I remember correctly, there were a lot of hits, guys. I'm pretty sure he got hit right in the shoulder, early on, a super deep wound. And so once I kind of saw that, I just thought, based on how I'm trained, there's no way he makes it out. It's gonna be the hero and the reunion of him and his girl, which I was wrong about too, obviously. But I don't think I ever thought his friend was gonna make it. I mean, he just kind of seemed like his sidekick, nameless friend character. So
when she died, I thought he was going to make it, because I thought in my, as this was going in my head, there's no way they're going to kill them both. And they did. Yeah. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I guess I didn't even think about it. You literally just brought that to my attention, that the 3 leads are dead.
All of them.
Yeah. I didn't even think of it like that. But of course, that's what happened.
It's crazy.
Huh.
I mean, that's drastic decisions in a movie like this.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Good for them.
In the first one, not in John Wick 4. Okay.
Yeah.
In the first one, we didn't stretch it out for 4 sequels.
How cool is that?
So cool.
Do you have anything else?
No, I mean, it's in my top. It's firmly in my top 10 of the year so far, but inching into that top 5. I think it's going to end up being a number 4, number 5 right now.
Potentially. So this is. Let me restart that. So to kind of piggyback off of that weird tangent I went on, that we're kind of experiencing cinema all over again for the first time. So this is the first time I've had the perspective that I have, whereas they announced Kill. So they announced that Kill is going to be remade. Chad Stahelski is going to bring it to America and they're going to remake it. Now, we hear all the time about American remakes from foreign films, but off the top of my dome, I can't think of one that I had an investment in because I saw the foreign movie first. So this is the first time where I've had a different perspective on America remaking a foreign film. So I'm trying to figure this out in real time. I don't think I know quite yet. But prior to this, I've always been accepting of Americans just remaking whatever foreign movie. Because these are not movies that American audiences are seeing anyway. And now that I've seen the foreign Kill before the American remake, I don't know that I feel that way anymore. I mean, I think I do. It's not like I'm anti-American remake, and it's not like I don't have... I'm obviously aware that it's not an easy task to just ask people to go to their theaters to watch Indian movies. A lot of people don't like subtitles. A lot of people barely have the money to see American movies. You know, it's a hard thing to ask when we podcast about foreign cinema. So it's like, if they remake it in American and maybe the American remake is what causes them to watch the foreign movie, like that's probably how I've always articulated it in the past. Like, you know, yeah, remake Let the Right One In with Matt Reeves, crank out Let Me In, and if it's cool, then maybe that's what prompts me to watch Let the Right One In. It's like, I think that's still okay and true, but is it that simple? And is this the first time for you as well that you're kind of experiencing this way? Yeah,
basically. You know, I've always been of the same mindset. I'm like, I'm okay with the remake. You know, if it brings attention to the original, that's great. But again, you know, a lot of the times your perspective is driven by the thing, if it's high quality, by the thing you see first. And so if I see the remake first and then I go back and watch the original, if I love the remake, then maybe the original is not as good, even though it may be as good, because my vision has been clouded by what I've seen first. And so, again, this is my first time, really. I mean, there's probably other examples, but just thinking of it off the top of my head, seeing the original for the first time and then hearing of the remake being announced as you had just watched it for the very first time. And so this is an example where I'm thinking, I don't want to see a remake, because what are they going to do to improve on this?
Right.
They could improve on it. And if I would have seen that first and it's really high quality, then I would probably prefer that to this if I'm watching this second. But you have something so special with this movie that's a combination of things that don't even feel like they should go together, but they do. And a concept that should be familiar and generic, but it's not. And so how are you going to recapture that formula? As I have no clue. But again, like you're saying, it's not that simple. because that could be something, especially with Stahelski attached, that brings a lot more attention to this movie. So maybe it's good for it. And so I think there are two sides to this coin here, two very easily persuadable sides to this coin. And I think it's a fascinating discussion depending on what side you're on first.
And it also feels a little bit weird because this is already distributed by Lionsgate. So I think, and I don't know, but I feel like this of all movies is going to get more American attention.
Should.
Like, I feel like I'm going to see it on Vudu here in a few weeks and be able to rent it and then tell people to watch it, or if it's going to be on Netflix or something. So it's like, it feels like a movie that American audiences will get to see eventually. Mm. I don't remember when exactly I saw The Raid in context to them announcing an American remake. So, and it's not quite different because the Kill remake doesn't exist yet. And they never made an American Raid movie. So yeah, I just don't remember how that went down. I don't know if I saw The Raid first and then because then it would be the same. If I just don't remember. But I definitely, I think I still always had like, hey, remake this. I've already seen the original movie, so why not remake it? But yeah, that's not even how I feel now. So, but I agree with you because this movie is so special. If we had just seen what I thought, which was just, hey, here's the Indian John Wick, then fine. Like, then fine, remake it. But the fact that this was such a special singular movie, that I feel like we can only be disappointed that we either didn't make as good of a movie or that we made the copycat movie.
Yeah.
So
you're right. I mean, even if they do everything the same, then it's just, well, then why didn't we just stick with the original movie? You know, so it's almost like they're in a lose-lose situation. Again, I think Stahelski, if anyone's going to do it, just as, at least in the action department, it's going to be Stahelski. But how do you distinguish it enough to where it's not the same, but keep the heart and soul? Like, how do you do that? I don't know if it's possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you remember when they announced a remake of Parasite? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They were going to do an American remake of Parasite. And then Bong Joon-ho was like, well, actually, it's going to be like a spin-off, different story. I feel like they maybe changed that because of the backlash. But, like, what are you doing?
Well,
what are you doing?
But I also think his explanation makes sense because I don't think...
Oh, it does. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like, a lot of the class stuff that they have, we could replicate in America. I think... I don't want to spoil Parasite. Let's say there's a surprise in the house, is how I'll put it. And then there's a reason that surprise is in the house. And I don't know. They'd have to change what that's all about. I mean, they could. Yeah. It's not impossible. They can definitely just rewrite why that's so. But I guess my point is, if they're going to do that, they'd have to change it enough to where what Bong Joon-ho said makes sense. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm trying to make sense, but it's also 2 a.m.
It is. It's very late right now. Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm still riding the Kill high, and I had a Coke. So
you don't have to anymore because I think that's about it for this podcast anyway. There's nothing left to do but log this on Letterboxd if you haven't already.
Was it worth the drive? I think that's the most important thing. Was it worth the drive?
100%. Yeah. It's so funny to me that this has been going on for 8 hours for us. Like this whole like
and it started
experience.
At 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, pretty crazy. 9 hours, whatever, however long it's been. We've had a healthy amount of time to spend on Kill tonight, that's for sure.
Yes, we have.
All right, I'm loopy. I haven't made sense half of this podcast. But nonetheless, it was our second one this week. So there's that for you. We owe you some extra Patreon time, but we're going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do it another time.
Yep.
Anything else, or do you want to sign off here?
Yeah, if you are on the audio feed, you want to go check out the YouTube, that would be awesome. Vice versa as well, just to throw support in all directions. And going to be covering this extensively on all my channels, Austin Burke, Burke Reacts, and hopefully, by the time the end of the year comes, this will be firmly in my top 10. And if it's not, then we had a phenomenal year. But if it is, I'm going to be very content, man, because it was just a really cool experience. And I'm going to recommend this to, I was talking to my brother on the phone on the way there. I'm like, listen, dude, I don't know if it's going to be worth this hour and 30-minute drive. And he's like, what is this movie? I've never heard of it. I texted him as soon as it was over. And I said, dude, watch Kill. And I'm going to call him tomorrow and just rave about it to him, because I think this is one he would absolutely love. So hopefully get to go see it again and take my brother this time. Just not in Louisville. I'm going to wait till it comes to Lexington.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be able to cheerlead this more once it comes out on streaming. But yeah, I'll get some people to watch it for sure. I don't think I'm convincing anybody to see it in theaters, but that's just the reality of it. Yeah, you can find our videos on our YouTube channels. Subscribe to Reboot Ryan. It's another channel that I have. The YouTube tag is at Reboot Ryan, youtube.com. That's where I put up our review. Burke is featured in that as well. I'm going to be doing more watch-alongs. I'm going to start with RRR and Bahubali rewatches, because why not? Why not start that YouTube channel off with the movies that I started my Indian cinema journey on in the first place, when there's been so few and it's been a recent experience. So why not just chronicle everything there? So check that out when I make it. And you can also find me at Rewatch Ryan as well. That's all I got.
You forgot Reborn Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
That's the third one.
I'll figure it out. I can only have so many channels per phone number or whatever YouTube's thing is. What's next week? Long Legs.
Long Legs.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
All right, guys. We'll see you over there. Bye-bye.